Yeah, there you go. There you go.
I'm so legit today because I have my little like phone stand, but that was way too close. Like,
Still using the water bottle
not
technique.
cute. Can we
The
add
water
filter
bottle
to
technique
this?
definitely is the way to go.
I'm gonna need a filter. Oh snap! I think you can.
You
Woo!
can add a filter?
No, I'm not gonna add a filter. I'll
Come
be
on.
cool. Be cool.
Come on. Come
That
on.
would have been.
Put the dog ears maybe.
Oh god, that one's weird. I really like that one
Oh man.
What's up, people?
Lit. All right. What's going on? What's going on? We got a few people in here already. It's 2:00, so we might as well get this thing started. We did tell people we would start at 2. So 1:00 Central, sure, whatever. We're going off of Eastern. I'm the one hosting this.
Good point.
Why don't you give a little bit of a rundown of what went down last time?
Okay, so super quick, 3-part series that James and I are jamming on this week. In the first talk, we went over all the things to do with planning. Like, how are we planning food in this time? What are some easy, simple tools to consider? How do we put together a grocery list? That was a really fun convo. James and I both got some cool questions and some feedback after that. So we're gonna ride on that. After the talk, we sent out an email with the recording as well as a free nutrition planning guide. So for those of you who want that, you'll have access to it after this call as well, if you're on one of our mailing lists. That's kind of the only thing. So
Exactly.
So we're going to go into now what? That we've done all the amazing planning, James.
Yeah, so we got all this planning done. We figured out grocery lists and how to choose our groceries appropriately. We created a list using the amazing resources that you made, and then we sent out to everybody. And now that you have your list, you got an idea of what food you need, what you can have on the back burner just in case something doesn't work. We're trying to figure out, what do you do now? What do we do now? So basically what you do now is, once you finally have that list in place, ideally you would have went shopping. You would have gotten the food that you needed to get. You would have come home, unpacked everything, and then looked around and said, okay, well, now there's still no food cooked. There's still nothing done. I just now have a ton of food. So we got to get into what you're going to do once you have all this food in place, and how can we start to plan and prep to make sure that we are as successful as possible.
Yep. So all the action items that follow up with that. So one of the things James and I were talking about before we got on this call was kind of how we organize this on a week-by-week basis and what it looks like to kind of schedule these pieces. And we work with clients one-on-one with this stuff. So the interesting thing is that it depends on the person, but we're going to try and be a little more helpful than like, it depends on you.
Yeah.
And give you a rough framework for scheduling out kind of these pieces, right? Because in the first talk, we talked about planning. That kind of is something that can be scheduled out. For a lot of clients, they find that knowing that they're just going to be putting together their plan for the week and the grocery list for the week in its own little 5 to 10 minute spot, like maybe they'll do it at lunch at work. It doesn't apply too much right now for some people, but
Right.
maybe it's a Friday night before they go to the grocery store on a Saturday. Actually having that as a moment in your week that is scheduled is incredibly helpful, because from there we can go into the second phase, which is what James just talked about, actually acquiring the food, whether that's delivery right now, and planning ahead right now is also really helpful, because I know I've tried using Instacart and some delivery services, and those are like 3 to 4 days out. You can no longer, at least where I'm at, there ain't no same day delivery anymore. So if you know that your planning session is set here and your food will be arriving 3 to 4 days later, great. The food comes, you've got it, you've got everything that you need. And then the next part of that is the prep piece of it, and breaking it in those parts. I mean, James, I don't know about you, like when you started in any kind of like this health process, I remember trying to set aside like the Sunday afternoon slog fest.
Oh yeah.
And just like, and it would take up like hours of the day, and I would do it and I'd be so proud of myself, and I did like these complicated recipes. And then I'd either like end up hating the recipes, or I would just be so burned out from that Sunday session that it was not sustainable at all. So being able to break it into pieces is something that is so helpful to kind of picture. I don't know, is it kind of similar for you as well, James?
I mean, so when it came down to it, I remember when I just wanted to try to get things prepped as best as possible when I started this. Like, I mean, I've been doing this for like almost 10 years now. So I think we all been through it when we're like, oh, the best way to do this is to prep everything one day a week, Sunday prep time. You take your pictures, you put your hashtags, you post it on the gram so everyone knows that it's like Sunday prep day.
So impressive.
That's so impressive. Oh, God, I'm so impressed. Never worked for me. Never once
Yeah.
worked for me. the frequency wise, like we're going to kind of get into this in a few minutes about, what kind of frequency of prep works well for you guys. And we'll kind of come back and forth fit, and you guys can totally ask questions below. But I'll be honest, I'm on the exact, like, complete opposite spectrum. I literally do everything day to day, and it just makes me feel better.
Yep.
I may on occasion, cook or roast or steam some veggies for a couple days, just because I like to make a lot at a time. But other than that, my proteins are generally cooked the day of or the night before. Starches, same things. I eat so much of that, rice and potatoes and things like that. So I have to do it almost on a daily basis.
Yeah. And I think that's the luxury of being able to, like, mostly work from home. Like, you have brick and mortar, but also being home a lot more frequently. So my laziness, I can get away with it. I think you can get away with it. Like that prepping as you go. For a lot of my clients who are more corporate or who go to work a ton, if they don't have something prepped for at least like 3 to 4 days at a time, it's just like chaos. It's so hard for them to be successful. So I think that's an element of it. And what's kind of cool is the strategies that have worked really well for you and me up to this point is kind of probably what a lot of people are going to be adapting a little bit more of now that we're home a lot.
I think they're going to have to, yeah. Now that we're stuck at home, for sure.
Yeah.
A lot of those strategies are just going to come into play naturally because I think a lot of people are just going to be lost in what they have to do. Our first talk on Sunday, I mean, like, I got some feedback from a few people, and everyone really, really liked that on how we were able to kind of talk about grocery planning and everything to get people set up.
Yep.
But now we have to talk about what you're going to do with all this food that you have.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So what do you do? Like, maybe give us a really bird's eye view at a glance of what it looks like for you. You got your stuff. Maybe what you might be prepping and when you eat it. Like, what does a day look like for you?
Yeah, totally. So a day for me, as far as prep goes, is super, super simple. Usually, like I said, my proteins, if I have time in the morning, because I still do, I don't work entirely from home. Like, I still generally go to the gym every day, except for now. So usually I'll give myself a bit of time in the morning. I'll give myself a couple hours to be able to prep things out. So for sure, as soon as I wake up, I'm popping things into the rice. I'm popping rice into the rice cooker. I know you're a fan of your way. Yeah. We're not going to get into the debate of this again, but that's why the video ran for like 40 minutes last time.
Yeah.
But I'm popping that in the rice cooker because it's easy to me, and I eat just a ridiculous amount of rice in my day. So I'll put that in there. If there's meat or if there's protein that requires a little bit more of an excessive cooking time, if I can put it in the oven, that's usually my go-to, just so I don't have to stand there and be with it the whole time.
Yep.
And then steaming veggies for me, I literally do before I leave, because my broccoli, I'll take it out, I'll cut it up, I'll put it into a kind of like a colander do like a double boiler style, and steam it. It takes 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So all in all, I mean, I give myself maybe 2 hours in the morning to prep and eat and do a little bit of work. But in that time, I'm also finding time to cook. And that's just a strategy that worked really well for me because I found the time to do it. So that might not be the go-to for everyone. What about you?
So I'm somewhere in the middle, and it will vary somewhat from each week. So I know that I am most successful. Like, I feel the best. I'm a little bit the most organized when I do like 2 to 3 prep sessions per week. And that might look like, usually it's on Mondays for me. I don't know why. That might look like, 45 minutes on a Monday, and then 30 to 45 extra minutes on a Thursday, and then maybe a little bit on like a Friday or Saturday. But in general, I prep as I go as well, because if I'm preparing a meal, it's very unlikely that I'm not also prepping something along with that. Because if I'm, I want to open my fridge, I want to see options. So I want to see that I can choose ground turkey, or I can choose salmon. I can choose sweet potatoes that are already cooked, or I can choose rice. I can choose sheet pan veggies, and I can just take a serving from each of those, put it in the oven, and heat it. And generally, if it's heating up, like maybe I notice, I'm running low on rice. Great, I will go ahead and just like whip up in 7 to 10 minutes or less some stovetop frozen rice, right? Or maybe veggies. I'm low on veggies, and now that I have an air fryer, like great, chop it up, throw it in the air fryer, it's done in 7 to 10 minutes, right? So I kind of prep as I go, but I try to always make sure that there are options on hand. And so that's what a lot of my clients have found that's really helpful as well. The ones that don't need to plan everything, week at a glance. I think we had someone on here a second ago who mentioned that she enjoys the Sunday prep. I have clients that love it too. It's like super. It is to be able to just open your fridge and like have the options there. It is the best feeling in the world. And it's just pure laziness on my part and like luxury that I don't do it all the time. So something that's really helpful for me, because I don't prep as much in advance, that also does make me a little more vulnerable to like running extra low and kind of being caught out without having a ton of options. And
Right.
that's something that you and I wanted to cover in this call as well, like contingency plans. If I'm
Yeah.
out of protein or if I'm out of this meal, then what do I do? So like, what are some of your favorite things? What are your kind of your backup plans? What do you do?
Totally. So, I mean, it's going to depend on my clients as well. Just to touch on the frequency of prep, some people, like I said, so Patricia, who commented down below, is a client of ours, and she really enjoys doing prep once a week, and that works really well for her, and that's great. And I got some people who just can't do prep once a week. They don't want to eat food on a Friday that they cook on a Sunday. Which is reasonable for them too. So usually picking out a couple of days in the week to be able to do it, like you were talking about, would probably be the best way to do that. And it kind of avoids these kind of shit hits the fan contingency situations.
Yeah.
But if we find ourselves in a situation like that, this is where I kind of use that grocery list as well to pick up a couple of things that would fit into that category, like the frozen seafood or frozen veggies or something like that.
Yeah.
Just because if you don't have time to, and if you need something extremely like extravagant to eat, like I'm super simple. I won't really spice things up too much if I don't need to, because I'll just eat because I'm a robot apparently. But if you do need something a little bit more tasteful and you don't have time to do it, well, then I would always opt for like the frozen shrimp, frozen scallops, things like that you can defrost and cook within a very short amount of time that doesn't require very much effort, very much seasoning altogether. So that's a really good way to get those proteins in. For veggies and produce, it's not my first go-to, but frozen is a good option if you're having trouble getting fresh produce. If you just run out and can't go out. If you're in a situation like this where you can't leave your house because you're in quarantine, so you got to send someone else out to do it, and they don't have time to do it. Well, all of a sudden these plans start to come into play a lot more. And the cool thing about figuring it out now is that you can now have fail-safes for when life gets hopefully back to normal real soon.
Yeah, it's almost
you can use the exact same fail-safe. Exactly. Yeah. So the more work you put in now and the more you use these meals and this prep as kind of anchoring habits for nutrition, you're going to be, the only thing that's going to happen is that life will start to pick up again, and you should be able to hold on to these anchors as much as possible.
Yeah, totally. And that kind of ties really well into a concept that you and I both learned through some of the groups that we've been in, like just like the whole anti-fragile concept, right?
Yeah.
So in part of my program, we go through the stress module, etc. One of the things that I have them come up with are things called the redundancies from that idea. And that idea of having these redundancies / contingency plans, because it's not that nothing is ever going to happen, right? Like we know that things are going to get crazy. We know that something's going to happen at some point in the future. Just because we can't predict it doesn't mean we can't prepare for it, which is so cool. It's one of the best feelings ever, is just to know that like you don't know when you're going to miss that lunch. You don't know when you're going to forget or something's going to, but you know it will happen at some point. So what is it that you default to in that scenario, right? And so some of my favorites, super smoothie is always my go-to. I talked about this in the last call.
Solid.
Like, I can literally always put together a complete rounded out meal in a super smoothie with whey protein, with a couple veggie sources, with frozen sweet potatoes or banana or fruit, and with avocado. Boom. Like every single category is covered. It's super simple. Another one of my go-tos is always going to be, like you said, like frozen stuff, right? Like I keep some hibachi frozen rice, which is just like so delicious to me.
Again, I'm not taking the bait.
Yeah, no, don't even take it. I know, right? Some kind of veggie. And then, dude, gluten-free chicken nuggets, like, the best. Like, I freaking love it. So things like that, like always having those kind of alternate options in mind for sure, which it's just like, it's so nice. Clients will be like, oh yeah, I this happened and this is normal for me to kind of miss an afternoon spot or a lunch point in certain times, but now I have this backup, and it was so nice to have it. That's the thing, is it's so nice to have these backup plans when you do need them.
Yeah. Another thing I like to do with certain clients that eat out very often, because they either have to take clients out for lunch or certain things like that, they don't really have the ability to eat home cooked meals that often. I think that would fall into this contingency plan area as well. The super smoothie is fantastic. I didn't even think of that. That's a fantastic way to do it if they can get their hands on a bunch of stuff, or just pre-blend it if they know that they're going to have a long day.
Just shake it up again, you're good.
Yeah, exactly. And another thing that I like for people that have to, if anyone there has to eat out at restaurants very often, if you have control over which ones to pick, try to find like three or four that you
Yes.
know you can get a good meal at. Because keep in mind too, when it comes down to restaurants, I mean, the whole point of culinary school is to make things taste good, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times, chefs and cooks are very liberal with oils and fats and things like that, just to make sure that things taste as good as possible. They hit all those buttons in the brain.
Right.
But what you can do is if you're very comfortable in certain places and you know that you can get a high quality protein, you can get good quality vegetables, you know that they don't oversaturate their food as much as possible in oils and things like that.
Yeah.
Maybe you can build a relationship with some of the waiters or waitresses or anyone there. That's going to make your life a lot easier, because just because you're eating steak and veggies at a restaurant doesn't mean that it's going to be the same thing as you eating that at home.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a really big misconception.
It's a really, really good point that people like. We talked about this in the last call as well. Like, I want people to feel like they can go out to eat, because I like going out to eat. Right?
100%.
It's just a matter of, if you have more precise goals, or if you're trying to address this, like your health just a little bit more, like just to be aware of the options that you have, and maybe coming up with some of those backup options. So I love that. That's a solid idea.
Yeah, it really is. But I mean, for the time being, I don't think many people are going to be necessarily going out to eat at restaurants that much. The one thing that's a problem, and that's exactly it, is that we got Uber Eats though, right? So, and it happens to everyone. Like, and that's what I want people to understand, is that like you and I, because we've been in this industry for a while, are not more special than anyone else. So I remember we had just done, yeah, exactly. Mena and I had done grocery shopping just before this whole situation, went out, or what she did. I was at home. She did a whole bunch of grocery shopping. She came home. We had all this food. We are set. We sat down because, again, it's not on our usual prep days. And then, like, for like a good couple minutes, we just sat down and we're like, like, I'm hungry now. And you're kind of like scrolling, like you're scrolling on your phone, you're scrolling through Uber Eats, and we're like, we literally just fucking bought food. Like, what are we doing? And we put the phone down and we went to cook something,
That happens to everyone.
It happens to everyone. You're going to get to a point, and this is this is even worse probably now, because at least when you're kind of at work, you have your routine. If you have to go out to lunch to eat with colleagues or stuff like that, you can kind of mold your environment a little bit. But when you're at home and you start getting these little nudges and these little cravings that are not because you're hungry, are just because you need stimulation, and you're going to get a dopamine rise from being able to eat something very, very comforting. So you're going to go after something that's going to give you that stimulation, and that's where a lot of this fast food and Uber Eats ordering thing is going to come into play.
Yeah, for sure.
So you got to make sure that you don't fall into this bubble, and you don't fall into that black hole where you just get too caught up in not wanting to put in the work to prep and plan and then create good food, and you just fall into, it's much easier for me to order on my phone and get something delivered to my door.
Yeah, well, and I think that that's what we've kind of been trying to get across in these talks, is that it requires so little effort. Like, so little effort to put together that list, to just know that, like, cool, so Thursday nights roll around, like, I want to make sure that I've got some planning done so that I can have groceries delivered by Monday. Great. Like, if that just becomes this automated part of your life, then you stop getting kind of caught in those traps of needing to order Uber Eats. Order Uber Eats because you want the corn cotija avocado toast, okay? Not because, like,
I don't know what kind of fancy ass Uber Eats you have in Dallas, but
it's amazing. It's the street corn avocado toast from HG
Supply.
All
right.
Seriously, like, order it because, like, you want to have it, you want to enjoy it, not because you're just, like, famished and screwed and you're like, oh, dude, I'm now going to feel crap after it. Like, not really.
Exactly.
So.
That's even worse, right? Because everyone just feels bad about it when everyone will just do better. And I don't like making general statements that everybody will do well or nobody will do well. But I'll be honest with you, the clients that I have that are able to find time to prep that fits into their schedule, not because I'm telling them to do it, but because they decided, like, oh, I want to eat healthy. I know all the good things that are going to come with eating healthy. They do all the things that come with, the laws of behavioral change. They make it attractive. They make it obvious. They make it simple. They make it satisfying.
Yep.
And you have to align that with your prep days. If you say, like, oh, it happens all the time that Friday nights I happen to eat out because I have no food because you prepped earlier in the week.
Yep.
Make Thursday a prep night, like you said.
Exactly. Yeah.
Make it a prep day because you'll have stuff ready on Friday. And even if that's just cutting up veggies to make it easier for you to throw them in a steamer, throw them in your air fryer, do something like that, you don't have to go out of your way and cook, because our nights are all, like, everyone is lacking time. if we're being serious, right? Like
Yeah.
it's very difficult to tell someone like, oh, no problem. Just once you're done your entire day, go home, make sure everything's great with the kids, do the homework, put them to bed and do all that stuff. And then take 2 or 3 hours to prep and cook everything.
Oh my God, I'm dead.
You know what I mean? Like that's, no one's going to do that. Like
Yeah.
I would get fired instantly. So we have to find something that's going to work for most people. And that's just creating, like you said, these small little boxes of time. If it's 15 minutes, okay, cool. You have 15 minutes on a Thursday night. Fantastic. Just chop veggies for the next day.
Yeah.
Or,
you know, I Jedi myself like that. That's why so many things have evolved, is because I've recognized over the years that there's so many things I want to do, and there's like the person that I want to be, and like really consistent, blah. And I just, there's a lot of stuff. There's too many things.
Yeah.
So I mind jetting myself with stuff like that. Like, I'm just going to chop the veggies, or I'm just going to put on a pot of rice, or I'm just going to wash these 2 dishes. Like, even cleaning as I go is a really weird mind jet, I think, that I'll do. So that I don't have just like an entire sink full of dishes. And before you even realize it, you realize like you're just like, it's cool. It's automated. You're no longer having to exert extra mental energy toward this stuff. You've got food available without having to like allocate this huge block of time. Again, if that works for you, fantastic. Like, you're good. You don't need us. But if not, if you need an alternate source, like there's nothing wrong with it, for sure.
Not at all. Not at all. And these are just little things, like even for you guys that are listening, it's just small little plans that you guys can have to keep yourselves on track, because it's not going to be easy at a certain point. Like even getting around to being at home and finding motivation to train or cook or prep anything is going to be difficult. But you just got to find, if you can just open up a calendar and mark something down and give yourself the accountability to do it, that's going to make your life a lot easier.
And to that point, especially now as people are transitioning to being home a lot more, like personally, my life honestly hasn't changed that much, I'll be honest. But for everyone else, like, you're needing to adapt now to having just this wide open day, and you still have things to do, surely.
Yeah.
But it probably feels really ungrounded and really uncomfortable. So meal times can be a phenomenal anchor. And I've had clients kind of struggling with different appetite stuff, like kind of been not hungry and also been snacking a lot. Which I just talked about in a post yesterday. If you want to go check that out, some suggestions on that.
It's a great post,
but, like anchoring the meal times. Know that your meal time is scheduled and you don't have to stuff yourself, but starting with those categories that James and I talked about in the last call, like making sure that there's some lean protein there, like that there's a veggie source, that there's a starchy carb. You know, obviously that one can come with some asterisks, but generally you're going to be fine with some starchy carbs. You know, seeing that meal is okay, and then schedule it. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. Schedule it. And then your lunch, and then your dinner. Maybe there's an afternoon spot in there. Knowing that that can be something that kind of grounds your day will be so helpful. Probably your appetite will normalize. You'll probably see some energy kind of regulate. We just kind of have to be kinder to ourselves as we go through this really weird, like kind of wild time, and not expect ourselves to be like crushing everything and like adapting super quick, right?
Yeah. Well, that's it. You're not, like, no one's ever been in. I mean, when was the last thing that really affected the world at this rate? Was like war, basically, right? And not even recent. Like World War II was the only thing that had everyone really freaking out and staying indoors, doing all these things. So we've never really been in a situation where we have to think about how we're going to be able to survive and keep our daily habits and keep ourselves from not going crazy while staying indoors for an indefinite amount of time right now. Right. And those anchoring habits through mealtime is what's going to be super effective for that. Yeah. If you struggle with not really understanding the difference between being hungry and just being bored, and that's a lot of people, and that's not to take a shot at anything, it's going to come from you saying, all right, well, breakfast is at this time, lunch is at this time, dinner's at this time. Yeah. If I eat balanced and I eat everything I normally should be eating, there's really no reason for me to go after anything else besides the fact that I'm just bored and I want a snack. Which, cool, you can do that too if you want, but just understand where that's going to lead you as well. Just be responsible about it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all it's going to come down to. And, Brie was mentioning her post. I posted yesterday also about, like, should you cut calories in a quarantine? If you're still able to move around, you're able to take steps in the day, go for walks, get a workout in, you probably don't really have to. You can still check out your weight and see if you're just, if you start to climb up steadily, then yeah, maybe I would tone down the calories a little bit, which again, if you're doing all these steps that we've been handing out to you in terms of planning your grocery list, finding times to prep, anchoring yourself with meal times, shouldn't even be really that big of an issue. You should actually be able to take stuff out or add stuff in on the fly because you know when you're eating, what you're getting, and how much you're getting.
Yeah. Yeah, we're trying to just like remove as much like brain space as possible with these steps. And on the front end of trying new things, it always feels like it's a lot. But I mean, this is something that generally my clients adapt to within like a week or two. And usually the biggest response I get is like, oh my God, like I have so much more time freed up because I'm no longer spending so much of my brain space thinking about what I'm going to do. Like it's really, really cool. So, so we are going to send that out again. If you missed it in the first go around, or if you're not on one of our mailing lists, James, your link is in your bio, right?
In my bio, link for the newsletters in the bio.
Yeah, and mine as well. If you go to right now, the link in my bio is for the self-guided formula, which I've opened up, which is just kind of like automated, incorporating a lot of habits and stuff. Check it out if you're interested. But if you want to just join the mailing list, just go to the main page of my website. Mailing list is on there. And so we'll send out this recording as well as that nutrition planning guide to everyone who's on the mailing list for free.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's the whole point of this. The whole point of this is to share information as best as possible and keep you guys healthy and keep us from going insane by helping you stay healthy, pretty much. So yeah, thank you. That's kind of what it's for, really. But yeah, so hop on either of our mailing lists. And what we're doing is, like we did last time, we're going to send out the free resources that come along with these talks in terms of just whether it's going to help you with your nutrition planning, writable PDFs. It's going to be awesome. And I'll be very honest with you, it's all Bree. She's amazing. So other than that, yeah, I finally got it too. I finally stole it. Other than that, we're also going to be sending you a recording of this talk, so don't worry if you have to jump in and out of it. You're going to get the full recording. It's going to be a YouTube link. And along with that, you're going to get a lot of awesome content from both of our newsletters, depending on whose you sign up for. We might do a competition. We might not. I don't know how it's going to go. It depends on how long we're in quarantine for. And then we're going to do another one of these talks, though, on Thursday at 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern.
I think
you're in Central Time, right?
That's
something like that. Exactly.
We'll confirm.
We'll confirm. You're going to see it on the newsletter. This one was, again, just about thinking about taking the information you got from the last talk, how you guys prepped your grocery list, how you come about knowing how much food you're going to have in your house, coming down to creating anchoring times to do prep several times in the week, make it simple for yourself, but also make it very sustainable in the long run and make it satisfying in the sense that you should have meals prepared and know what you're going to cook and then have everything able for you to eat as opposed to snacking or ordering out. And then next talk, we're going to get into a bit more on the details of actual meal prepping, some recipes. We're going to do a bit more of a Q&A session, I think, as well. So we're going to try to get some more people on here. And then, as always, we just kind of see where it goes with the flow of the video.
Word. Thanks for jumping in, guys.
Thanks for jumping in.
Yeah. Hit us up with any questions or things that you'd like to see in our next call.
Yes.
That's it. That's all I got.
That's it, guys. Thanks for hanging out. Like I said, you can DM us with any questions. Happy Tuesday. If there are times that also work better for you guys, let us know, and we'll try to tailor that up and hopefully keep these videos going for other things too.
Stay safe and inside, please.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Bree.
Thanks, James.
Yeah.